100% market share, zero viable competition, near perfect contract enforcement. Think about those numbers. No corporate monopoly today comes close. But the Crones of Crookback Bog have nailed proto-capitalism centuries before Adam Smith ever picked up his quill. The Crones don't rule over Velen through force and intimidation like the Bloody Baron does. Instead, they offer invaluable and tantalizing services for the local populace, which they then charge a brutal but never unattainable price for. Instead of serving a lord through feudalism because you were born on their land, you instead willingly serve the Crones for a specific service, be it protection, healing, or fertility. And unlike modern corporations, which will charge you with prices you couldn't possibly afford to pay, the Crones' psychopathy allows them to offer a custom price to every person that they can extract immense value or pleasure out of, creating such an essential business model that the villagers will happily send their own children to their deaths in order to gain what the Crones offer. The key parallel to capitalism here is how the Crones never enforce you to make a contract with them. They simply provide an innumerable amount of services that it's impossible to refuse, essentially giving them unlimited sway and power over the people of Velen, making them the true rulers instead of the Baron. Because the Baron doesn't provide services to the peasants beyond protection from opposing realms. But the Crones can greatly enhance a person's life with their Faustian bargains, creating a dependency on them and building a sense of loyalty. This is how the Crones mastered the art of capitalism, by providing a service so tempting that it can't be resisted, yet still making it optional so the customer doesn't feel ruled over when in actuality they're little more than a slave. This is in parallel to how corporations actually rule society, because the services they offer are intrinsic to everyday life, but they're under no obligation to provide it without incentive. And the true evil of the Crones is how they force that incentive. After the war decimated Velen, the Crones decided it was the perfect time to grind their heel on the devastated population. Their abilities would allow them to control things like whose crops failed, whose children got sick, and where the monsters would roam, creating the perfect market conditions for their contracts by inflicting as much misery as possible on the peasants, but obscuring their involvement so that they appear as problem solvers. This is like corporations creating artificial scarcity to drive up demand for their products, essentially making them the rulers of the land. But their despicable ingenious goes much further thanks to their deranged desires. Companies today all crave the same thing: money. This means if you have no money, you're useless to them and seen as less than human. But the Crones are psychotic witches, meaning their desires don't follow logic, and as long as they can inflict pain and suffering onto you, the only thing that matters is whether you have something to lose. In a modern understanding, this is like if you could be charged for products at a percentage of your total income, rather than at a fixed price, or price discrimination. The dynamic structure of the Crones' contracts means that essentially everyone is a potential customer, as they can extort someone's most precious possessions, or even body parts, in exchange for their magic, which in turn makes every single person in Velen a potential customer for the Crones. They simply need to inflict enough misery on them and demand a price they're still capable of paying. But what makes them even more ingenious capitalist scum is how they beat Bezos and Zuckerberg at their own demented game, by collecting mass market data on their clientele and creating a total surveillance system. One that they charged their customers to build, by demanding their customers cut off their ears so they can hang them, and through their paganistic magic, turn them into a surveillance network, which gives them complete control over all of Velen, as they're able to figure out which poor unfortunate souls are ripe for harvesting, giving them a little push into despair and driving the miserable peasant to their rotted doorstep. Where other companies collect massive amounts of private data in order to sell it to advertisers, the Crones are able to do their own market research for free and are able to target the most vulnerable people for their services. What's more, the Crones have the power to see the future, meaning they're able to effectively predict market trends and adjust their business model before the demand has even set in. In turn, the Crones have achieved what every CEO Black Blood dreams of: total unchallenged market monopoly, as you literally cannot compete with beings that can fulfill anyone's desires charge a universally affordable yet hefty price, and create their own supply and demand for no cost. It's simply no wonder that CD Projekt went on to make a game about corporate dystopia with the most despicable and soulless corpos in fiction, because they had already crafted the perfect allegory for psychotic CEOs who use mystical means to ensure the perfect business structure. What I'm saying is, the Crones absolutely should be in Cyberpunk 2, as the successors to Arasaka, because they've demonstrated their capabilities to lead any organization into a prosperous future. At least in a time period without that pesky democracy, but that's on the way out, so soon the season of the witch will be upon us once again. I'll be back in 2 days. In the meantime, I'm going to contemplate the life choices that led me to make this video, and here's another one about who Geralt's true romance might be.